They chose someone else for a while, but listen carefully, because that was never the full story. It was not because you were easy to forget. It was not because you meant less. And it was never because somebody else suddenly became more real than what they felt with you. The truth is harder than that. They stepped toward what felt safer, more manageable, more familiar. But safe is not the same as true. And now something inside them will not stay quiet anymore. An urgent message has been building in the silence, and whether they speak it out loud or keep carrying it alone, it has already changed them. Have you ever felt a bond that looked finished on the outside, yet deep down never truly ended? Stay with me, because this is where everything turns. What they left behind was not casual. It was not small. It was something that touched them more deeply than they were ready to admit. While they stood beside someone else, a part of their heart remained unfinished with you. That is the truth they can no longer outrun. And what comes next matters, because this was never about you lacking value. It was about them lacking the courage to hold something real when it was right in front of them. So if your spirit has been sensing that something remained open, trust that feeling. Some endings do not end when people walk away. Some truths wait in silence until they become too heavy to ignore. They moved toward what felt easy instead of what felt deep. They held on to what was predictable instead of what could have changed them in a real way. At that time, comfort looked like peace to them. Familiarity looked like love. Control looked like strength. But under all of that, something kept whispering that they had turned away from the connection that truly mattered. They stayed where emotions did not ask too much from them, where they did not have to risk being fully seen, where they could keep their walls standing and still call it stability. But quiet does not always mean calm, and stillness does not always mean truth. Deep inside, there was always a knowing they could not fully shut down. They knew something meaningful had been left behind. They knew that what existed between you asked more from them than they were ready to give. It asked for honesty. It asked for vulnerability. It asked for the kind of courage that changes a person from the inside out. And instead of stepping closer, they stepped back. Not because the bond was weak, but because it was powerful. Not because you were too much, but because what you awakened in them was too real to hide behind easy answers. Listen closely, because this part is important. People do not always run from what means nothing. Very often, they run from what means everything, because deep connection exposes the parts of them they have tried the longest to avoid. Once that truth began to settle inside them, it did not disappear with time. It did not fade because of routines, distractions, or another person standing beside them. It followed them quietly. It showed up in the evening when the noise of the day had finally gone silent. It appeared in pauses between conversations, in those empty moments when thoughts become louder than anything outside. What they felt did not demand attention in a dramatic way. It simply stayed, steady, quiet, persistent. It became the part of their inner world they could not fully explain away. Day after day, life may have looked normal on the surface. Things were manageable, things were moving, but something was missing. The deeper spark was absent. The sense of aliveness was thinner than they expected. They began to notice how much of themselves they had reduced just to keep everything simple. They held back their deeper questions. They shut down stronger emotions. They avoided anything that might challenge the version of themselves they had grown comfortable performing, and over time that created distance inside them. Imagine being physically present in your own life, yet not fully inside it. That is where they started living. Not in open chaos, but in quiet disconnection. And that kind of emptiness becomes impossible to ignore after a while. What they had elsewhere may have looked stable, but it did not carry the same depth, weight, or meaning. What they shared with you reached further into their heart, and things that truly matter do not vanish just because someone walks away from them. They wait, they remain, they rise again when the soul gets tired of pretending. Slowly, they stopped lying to themselves. Not in one sudden flash, not in some dramatic breakdown, but little by little, with the kind of honesty that feels uncomfortable because it leaves no room for excuses. They saw that they were never fully alive in the place they chose. Something important was always absent. No matter how much they tried to call it moving on, a part of them remained emotionally unfinished with you. That realization did not come gently. It came with weight. It made them look back at their choices without hiding behind timing, confusion, or fear dressed up as logic. And what they understood was simple, even if painful. They did not truly give the connection a fair chance, not because it lacked meaning, not because it was weak, but because it required bravery they did not yet have. It asked them to show up without armor. It asked them to risk rejection. It asked them to feel deeply without being promised a safe ending. For some people, that is harder than losing something, so they chose protection over transformation. They chose distance over surrender. They chose something they could control instead of something that could open them completely. If this is touching a place you do not often speak about, stay here with me, because the next layer explains everything. What they were avoiding was never truly you. It was the version of themselves that would have had to grow if they had loved you honestly. And once they saw that clearly, they could not unsee it. That kind of awareness changes a person forever, even if they never say a word. The illusion they were living in slowly broke apart. And when that kind of illusion falls, it does not always create noise on the outside. Sometimes it creates silence on the inside, the kind that forces a person to sit face to face with the truth. They had to feel the emotional weight of every moment they chose hesitation instead of honesty, every moment they stayed guarded when presence was needed, every moment they let fear guide what should have been led by truth. And through all of that, one thing became more clear. None of this was ever a measure of your worth. It was never proof that you were not enough. It was never evidence that someone else was better for them. It was a reflection of their emotional readiness, their fear of closeness, and their inability at that time to meet something genuine with equal courage. You were not replaced. You crossed paths with someone who did not yet have the capacity to stand fully where you were standing. That matters. Because many people carry wounds from situations like this and start believing they were somehow less valuable, less lovable, less unforgettable. But that was never the truth here. The truth was that your presence asked them to be real. And at that moment in their life, being real felt more dangerous to them than being comfortable. Now they are living with the result of that choice, not necessarily with dramatic regret on display, but with a deep awareness that sits inside them every day. It is a slow kind of clarity, heavy, undeniable, hard to explain away. And once that clarity arrives, the heart no longer lets a person go back to sleep. They want you to understand something clearly, even if they never know how to say it the perfect way. Their distance was born from fear, not from emptiness. Their inconsistency came from inner conflict, not from your lack of meaning. Their silence was not proof that nothing was there. In many ways, it was proof that too much was there and they did not know how to carry it. Now the truth has become sharper inside them. They can see the effect of their choices. They can see what their hesitation cost. They can see how their silence landed on someone who deserved presence, honesty, and effort. That awareness does not bring comfort. It brings humility. It brings regret. It brings respect. Respect for your openness. Respect for your strength. Respect for the fact that you asked for truth and did not settle for half-hearted energy. And regret that they were not strong enough to meet you at that same level when they had the chance. This regret is not loud. It does not always appear in obvious actions. Often it lives under the surface, showing up in late-night thoughts, in memories that return without warning, in quiet comparisons they never expected to keep making. They remember what was real. They remember what they avoided. And the more honestly they look at the past, the more impossible it becomes to pretend it did not matter. So if you ever wondered whether the connection meant something beyond the moment, hear this fully. Real emotional truth leaves a mark. It does not disappear just because life becomes busy. Another face appears, or time keeps moving. What is genuine stays alive in the deeper rooms of the mind. This is not only about missing someone, it goes much deeper than missing comfort or familiarity. It is about finally understanding what a real bond feels like and realizing that something genuine cannot simply be exchanged for convenience. A person can change locations. A person can change routines. A person can even build a new life on the outside. But inner truth has its own timing. And in their case, that truth kept growing stronger. In every choice they made, there remained some quiet awareness of you. They may not have spoken about it. They may not have admitted it, even to themselves. But the awareness never fully left. Instead, it matured into something heavier and more honest. They are not asking for forgiveness through this truth. They are not trying to force a return. They are not trying to rewrite the past and make it look softer than it was. They are simply facing what they could not face before. And sometimes that is the most powerful shift of all. They now understand that the person they hesitated to fully show up for was always you. That realization reshaped how they see love, connection, honesty, and emotional presence. Even if they never act on it, they carry it. Even if the past stays where it is, they cannot unknow what they know now. Watch this part carefully because it matters for your own peace too. Someone else's realization does not decide your future. Their awakening does not erase your wounds. Their regret does not automatically reopen your door. What it does offer is clarity, and clarity can free you from questioning what you meant to them in the first place. Now the deeper reason behind everything begins to show itself. On the surface, someone can look fully committed somewhere else, fully focused elsewhere, fully invested in another path. But emotionally, a part of them can still remain tied to what they never fully understood or resolved. This is not always simple betrayal. Sometimes it is unfinished attachment. Sometimes it is fear pretending to be certainty. Sometimes it is a person moving toward distraction because distraction feels easier than emotional truth. Fear has more power over people than most ever admit. Fear of closeness, fear of losing control, fear of needing someone, fear of being seen too clearly, fear of becoming different because of love. These fears quietly shape choices, often without full awareness in the moment. So they may go toward another connection, not because it is deeper, but because it feels easier to manage. They may choose a life that asks less of them emotionally. They may divide their attention because one part of them wants comfort, while another part still feels pulled toward what was real. And through all of that, your presence can remain with them. In memories, in comparisons, in moments when something reminds them of what honesty felt like with you. This is why outside behavior and inner reality can look so different. A person may appear settled yet still feel unresolved. They may look calm yet carry deep emotional noise underneath. And as time passes, that contrast becomes harder to live with. Sooner or later, reflection arrives. And once reflection becomes honest, regret begins to take shape. Not shallow regret, real regret. The kind that teaches, humbles, and leaves a permanent mark. Regret, when it is true, is not performance. It is not about dramatic gestures. It is about accountability waking up inside a person. It is about recognizing the impact of their choices without rushing to escape the discomfort. That is the path they are walking now. They are seeing how fear led them. They are seeing the chance they did not protect. They are seeing the emotional cost of choosing distance over truth. And while this is happening inside them, something important has also been happening inside you. You have not stayed frozen in the old version of this story. You have been growing too. You have been learning to protect your peace. You have been learning to trust your instincts. You have been learning that self-respect matters more than mixed signals. Even if part of you once waited for clarity, another part of you has been becoming stronger, steadier, and less willing to accept confusion as love. That growth matters more than you know. Because if any future interaction ever happens, it cannot return to the old version of things. Too much has changed. You are not the same. They are not the same. The dynamic is no longer built on uncertainty, longing, and emotional imbalance. It now stands in a different light. One shaped by awareness, one shaped by consequences, one shaped by the painful lessons both people had to learn in different ways. So if you feel the weight of this message, do not let it pull you backward. Let it ground you deeper into what you now know. You deserve effort that does not hesitate. You deserve honesty that does not hide. You deserve presence that does not disappear when things become emotionally real. Emotional presence is not the same as physical closeness. This is another truth they have come to understand. A person can sit beside someone every day and still be emotionally elsewhere. A person can build a routine with another and still feel a quiet connection to a bond that was never fully resolved. That inner presence does not always announce itself. It moves through thoughts, memories, sudden comparisons, and those strange moments when the heart reacts before the mind knows why. That is how unfinished truth lives. It stays in the background until a person is finally ready to recognize it clearly. And now they have recognized it. They have faced their hesitation. They have faced their fear. They have faced the choices they made when they were not brave enough to be honest. That recognition has changed how they see everything. But here is the part that matters most for you. Your life does not pause for someone else's late understanding. Your path does not wait for their clarity to become complete. You continue forward, wiser, stronger, more certain of what you will and will not accept. The connection may have been real. The feelings may still carry weight. The truth may have arrived later than expected. But your healing, your standards, and your peace are still yours to protect. So when you think about what comes next, do not think only about what they feel now. Think about what you deserve now. Think about whether any future energy meets you with the honesty, calm, and full effort you have always needed. Because awareness without action is still only half a bridge, and you are no longer meant to live on half-built ground. Take a quiet moment with that. Let it settle in your chest without rushing to decide anything yet. You already know more than you think. Your instincts have been speaking to you for a long time. Your inner voice has been showing you what felt true and what never felt complete. And through everything, you have been learning the difference between being chosen from fear and being met from clarity. That difference changes everything. If someone comes toward you from confusion, they bring confusion. If someone comes toward you from guilt alone, they bring emotional weight that has not yet become wisdom. But if someone ever comes toward you from truth, from self-awareness, from real accountability, you will feel the difference immediately. It will not feel rushed. It will not feel manipulative. It will not ask you to betray your self-respect just to revisit the past. It will be clear. It will be grounded. It will be honest. And until something reaches you in that way, your job is not to shrink, wait, or question your value. Your job is to remain rooted in what you now understand about yourself. This is where your power lives, not in being wanted after the fact, but in knowing you were always worthy of being fully met from the start. Stay with that truth. Let it replace every old story that told you their distance meant you were lacking. It did not. Their distance was about their fear. Your value was never the missing piece. Their courage was. And now, whether they speak or remain silent, that truth follows them. As this awareness deepens, they are beginning to understand something else as well. Real connection changes the standard for everything that comes after it. Once a person has felt something genuine, even if they ran from it, even if they mishandled it, they do not easily forget the difference between what is alive and what is only convenient. That is part of why this message feels urgent. Not because everything must happen now, not because a dramatic ending or return is guaranteed, but because truth has finally become impossible for them to soften. They know what they ignored, they know what they delayed, they know what they failed to protect, and now every future experience is filtered through that realization. They will notice more quickly when something lacks depth. They will feel more clearly when something is only habit dressed up as attachment. They will understand, perhaps for the first time, that emotional honesty is not optional if love is real. This is the kind of lesson that stays. And for you, there is also a lesson here. Sometimes closure does not come from hearing every word you hoped for. Sometimes closure comes from finally seeing the pattern clearly enough that you no longer need to carry the blame. Sometimes peace begins when you stop asking why you were not enough and start seeing that the other person was simply not ready to love without hiding. That is a different kind of freedom. A stronger one, a cleaner one. And if this message reaches something deep in you, let it remind you that growth is not always loud. Sometimes it is the quiet moment where you finally stop doubting your own worth. So what remains now is simple, even if it is not easy. Stay grounded in your truth. Trust the growth that has taken place inside you. Let your next steps come from calm, not from old ache. Let your decisions come from clarity, not from the pull of unfinished emotion. What is meant to align with you will meet you with honesty, effort, and emotional presence. It will not keep you guessing. It will not ask you to settle for fragments. It will not force you to translate silence into hope. And anything that cannot meet you there will fall away on its own, no matter how strong it once felt. The bond may have been meaningful. Their realization may be real. Their regret may be lasting. But your future is still yours. It belongs to the version of you that has learned to choose peace without denying truth, love without abandoning self-respect, and connection without accepting confusion as the price. If they ever speak, you will hear them from a different place now. If they never do, you still have the answer that matters most. You were real. What you offered was real. What they felt was real enough to follow them long after they tried to move away from it. And now the choice is no longer about whether they finally understand. The choice is about what you do with your own clarity. Hold that closely. Protect it. And move forward knowing this. Anything truly meant for you will not only feel deep, it will also arrive brave enough to stay.